Hello and welcome to the lab Accessing and Setting Up Your Site. In this lab we are going to go through how to actually set up the folders that you're going to need for the website that we will be working on for the rest of the semester. This is where your labs and case studies and any additional exercises will reside. And then once we get those folders set up, we're going to walk through creating our first two web pages. Going through this lab, I'm going to assume that you have read chapter 2 of your textbook that walks through some of the basic HTML that you'll need to know in order to create this, and the HTML that we're going to be using then for the rest of the semester. So the first thing that we need to do is I'm following the steps that are located out on Learn at UW Stout, and I'm in part 2, which will be creating our basic structure of our site. And to create the basic structure, websites are really just made up of files and folders. So in order to create the architecture or the hierarchy that we need for a website, we need some basic folders. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder that's going to hold all of the web files that I'm going to create for the rest of the semester. You're not going to want to work on these in individual like lab folders. You're going to want to keep everything in this particular folder. It'll keep it more organized, and you'll see how this builds and creates your website. This can reside anywhere on your computer. So if you want to keep it in your My Documents folder, if you have a folder set up for this class, any way that works. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to be setting this up on my desktop. So I'm going to go create new folder. Here's my new folder. I am going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call this one ICT375 Web Files. It doesn't matter what you name this as long as it is meaningful to you and you can find it. So that's the first thing I need to do. Then following the next step, I need to go inside of this and I'm going to create another new folder. This folder is called Exercises. Notice it is all lowercase. When you're working with HTML and other coding languages, it is best to pay particular attention to case. And since that's the issue, I almost always name my files with all lowercase letters. And since this resides in this one, remember, this one doesn't matter, and you're going to see why once we get to moving these files up to our web space, but everything that's inside it, pay particular attention to how you name it. So now inside of Exercises, I'm going to create another folder, and this one is called Case Studies. And notice there are no spaces. There are no spaces and no extra or special characters. So no ampersands, no apostrophes, none of those. The only characters that we can use in this case are hyphens, so the dash, or an underscore. And again, notice that this is all lowercase. So this now is the basic structure of what our website is going to be built off of. The next step, we're going to move into part 3 of the lab, and this is now setting up the actual files are going to populate and create the pages of our website. So for that, I'm going to use Dreamweaver. You can use any editor, so it's a text editor such as TextEdit, Text Wrangler, or Notepad, Notepad++. Any of that will work. Aptana also works, but for the sake of this, I'm using Dreamweaver, and I'm just going to go ahead and go into that right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a new HTML page. So I need to go to File, New, and in Dreamweaver, this window pops up, and you'll see a whole list of different file types that we can create. I just need a basic HTML file to create this. The other thing I need to pay attention to is that this doc type should be HTML, because this is just the version, and we are currently in HTML5, and that's where it should default. But if it doesn't, make sure that this is at HTML and this is HTML5. Now I'm just going to click Create. You'll notice when working with Dreamweaver, it provides us with all of the basic building blocks of HTML we need. So we've got the doc type. It'll tell us, here's our opening and closing HTML tags. Here is the head of our document, our opening and closing head tags. Underneath that, I'll come back to this other stuff in a moment. After that, we have the opening and closing body tags. If you're using another editor such as Notepad or TextEdit, you will likely have to code all of this in because those are simple text editors. If you're using a web text editor or a WYSIWYG editor like Dreamweaver, it will populate this code for you when you specify that you're opening an HTML page. So now, according to the lab, we need to change some things. The first things are in between the head tags. The head tags are the things that think about it as metadata, meaning it's data about data. In this case, we're going to give our page a title. The title is what shows up in the top of the tab, so not in the web page itself, but in the tab. And if you look at the assignment, it says to include your name and the word homepage. So that's what we're going to change that to state. Then the next step, we're going to go in between our opening and closing body tags. And I like to give some space. And all of these returns and extra spaces, HTML does not recognize. So I like to give myself what I refer to as some breathing room so that it's easier for me to see and read the code that's here. So the first thing we need to do is give it a heading 1, which we have the little opening caret, and then the letter H for heading and 1 for heading 1. Heading 1 is the largest of the heading sizes. Then I said to simply include your first name right here. And like almost all HTML tags, we need an opening and closing. So the closing has the / before it, but otherwise the characters match from front to back. The second part that we need to do is add a couple of paragraphs, and those paragraphs, we have the opening P tag, and we are going to say homepage, and then we're going to close that, and I'm going to give myself a little space here. We're going to open the second one, and this is going to say exercises. It's going to take us to the exercises page once we create our links. So there are my H1s, my P's, paragraph, and now I need to make these, the home page and exercises, into links. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I save this file. So I'm going to do a save as, and I need to make sure it goes into what is called the root of my website, which means in this case, here is the folder that's going to contain all of my web files. So the root means it's going to go right here inside of it. I'm going to call it index.html because web servers are set up to recognize certain default file names that automatically recognize it as the page to go to. So for example, if you go to a www.uwstout.edu, you're not typing in after .edu, you're not going /index.html. It automatically finds those pages. So we're going to name it index.html. I'm going to click save. And before I do anything else on this page, I'm going to go back to my desktop, and we're going to look at what's here now. So here is my root folder. This is the one that's going to contain all of my files. There's that exercises folder, and here's the index file that I just created. If I go back to Dreamweaver, I can use this little globe tool, which might be down at the bottom. Sometimes it's up at the top of the page. It's kind of dependent on how your page is configured. If I click on this, I can preview my page, which means I'm going to look at the local web page, just what's on my computer. I'm the only one who can see this. So I'm going to go preview in Google Chrome, and there's my page. So we have up here is Chris Isaacson's homepage. That is the information that's found between those two title tags. This is my H1. Then this is the first paragraph, and this is the second paragraph. Okay, so now I'm back in Dreamweaver, and we need to make these into links. So what we need to do is create an anchor link, which starts with an A for anchor, and is href, which href, it's a hyperlink reference. It means what page, what file are you going to reference with this particular link? So it's href, and I'm going to use this tool that's presented to me in Dreamweaver. If I double click it, it's going to give me the next pieces that I need, which is the equal sign and the 2 quotes. Now in between these quotes is where I need to put the file that I'm going to use. In this case it's index.html because I'm just referring to my own page here. So I'm referring to this index file with this. And then I need to make sure that I have the closing little caret here at the end of this so that this becomes my opening tag. So this is my ahref index.html. So that's the opening of my ahref tag or my anchor link. Then it goes the words that are going to actually be hyperlinked, and then after that I need to close my tag. So I just do the / and the A because all it recognizes is this A right here. So there's my first link. Now we just need to do the same thing with exercises. So I'm going to do my opening A and href. And I'll just type it in so you can see what we need. So ahref. In this case, we are going to be going to the exercises folder and getting the file in that folder. So in order to do that, we're going to go to exercises. That's the name of the folder. Notice it's all lowercase. And then I need to do a / that indicates we're going to be looking for a file that's in there, and I'm going to type in index.html. We haven't created that file yet, but we know that it's going to be the main page in our exercises folder. So we're going to call it index.html. I'm going to close that up. Then I'm going to close the actual tag. So there's my closing A. Now this file is ready to go. So I'm going to save it again, and I am going to go and preview this. So here we are again. There's my name. Now they're both links. So if I click on Homepage, it doesn't look like it's doing anything, but if you look at the navigation bar up here, you will see that it's still at index.html. If I click on Exercises, right now it's going to give me what's called a 404 error, which means that the file was not found, and that's because it doesn't exist yet. We need to create it. But you can see up in the address bar, it's looking for exercises / index.html. So we're halfway there. So let's go back. Okay, we're now back in Dreamweaver, and we are moving on to create our exercises main page. So we're still in part 3, but we're going to create our second page. So with this, we keep it fairly simple for ourselves. I'm going to use the page that I just created, and I'm going to do a file save as. So we're going to go file save as, but this time remember it needs to go into the exercises folder. So this is taking me, let's go back out to my desktop. Here is my file that's holding all my web files, and it needs to go into my exercises folder. And again, it's going to be called index.html so that it finds that as the main default page. So I'm just going to click save. If you're using Dreamweaver, it does this update links. I almost always click no because I don't trust what it does when it updates the links, so I'm just going to click no. It's fine if you go ahead and click yes, but just be warned that sometimes it doesn't quite update the way you expect. And so here is our new page. We notice up here I have 2 tabs. I'm going to click the one closed that was the home page because I don't want to confuse myself. I'll just work with the one file. So now I need to do some updating in this. So it's saved, and I'm going to keep my name, but I'm going to change the word home over to exercises. There we go. So this is between my title tags. So now it says Chris Isaacson's exercises page. This is between my opening and closing head tags. Now the next thing I need to change is go down to this H1 that's in my body tag. It needs to be changed so that it says exercises. And we're going to keep these 2 paragraphs. We're going to have to update these links in a minute, but let's create our 3rd paragraph first. This is going to will set us up so that we can do our case studies link once we begin doing case studies. So all I did is created yet another paragraph with the opening P, typed in case studies, and closed it. But now we need to, because this file exists inside of the exercises folder, I need to update these links, because if I don't, and we'll take a look at this, we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and I'm going to go preview this out in Chrome again. So here we are. It's my exercises page. The tab now, the tab says Chris Isaacson's exercises page, exercises. Here's my home page. Notice, if we look up here, it still says exercises/index.html. It's like, why isn't that my home page? Well, when you actually go in, let's bounce back to Dreamweaver. When you just say index.html, it's looking within the folder or the directory that it's in. So it still is looking in the exercises folder. This is why we need to change this. So to change this, all we need to do is go in front of the word index and go ... So this is just 2 periods and a /. But what this indicates in HTML is it means go up 1 directory or 1 folder. This will then say, nope, go outside of the exercises folder and go back into that main root folder. So this is all we need to do to fix this home page. Likewise, because we know that just plain index.html, when it was up here, kept us in the exercises folder of exercises/index.html, we can actually get rid of the word exercises and that /, and it'll just say index.html. This now should then actually fix our links so that they work. So let's go test it out. I'm going to save this file. I am going to go back out and do a preview in Chrome. I'm going to open up our page. So here it is again. So this time, if I click on my home page, it takes me to my home page. If I click on the home page here, you'll notice if we look up at the file, it stays put. It doesn't change. If I click on exercises, it'll take me to my exercises page. Here's the folder and here's the file name. If I click on exercises here, it stays. I'm in exercises and there's my file name. And remember, case studies, we'll get that later. So right now I can go back and forth. Pretty cool, huh? So I'm going to go back, make sure that this is saved. And one last thing is we're going to go ahead and make sure that our files are all in the right place. So here's our the main folder that's holding all of our web files. Here's our exercises folder. Here is our home page, index.html. And if we go inside of the exercises folder, there's our case studies folder, which if you remember has nothing in it yet. Go back to my exercises folder, and there is the main exercises page. So everything is in its place. So there is our file structure. You can see it's folders within folders within folders. So this is our first site and our links work. In the next video, I'm going to go through how you actually upload these to your web space so that everybody else can see these files just by going to your web address.